Resuming debate. Reprise de débat. The honourable member for St. John's East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and it's a pleasure to have an opportunity today to speak on the Conservative budget. The budget itself, of course, is no pleasure, but to have a chance to talk about what's wrong with this budget, where it's lacking, the negative direction it's taking this country, and to talk about some of the things that our party, the NDP, would do instead is something that I cherish. This budget, this Conservative budget, actually spends billions in handouts to the wealthiest at a time when the government should be investing in accessible childcare, affordable housing, and supporting seniors who are struggling to get by. The needs of places like Newfoundland and Labrador and the people of Newfoundland and Labrador and the Atlantic who have critical issues that need to be addressed, like regional economic development and supporting our communities. Issues such as a constitutional obligation of this government to support Marine Atlantic are absent from this budget. Absent as well, where is the $280 million that this government promised the government of Newfoundland and Labrador in a fishing industry development fund in response to the consequences of CETA, Mr. Speaker, and the request to remove their powers to expect local processing on fisheries? Where is that, Mr. Speaker? All of these are absent. And you know, what we've got instead is a claim for an allegedly balanced budget after 9 years in which they actually increased the size of the deficit by a total of $150 billion. They now have an allegedly balanced budget, and this supposedly is the talking point that they think will take them to the election and supposedly bring them another majority government. That's not going to happen, Mr. Speaker, because people are starting to realize that this Conservative administration, in fact, is not the prudent fiscal managers that they claim to be. How did they balance the budget, Mr. Speaker? What have we got here? We've got, they claim to have a balanced budget, and how did they get there? They got there by taking $2 billion out of the contingency fund. It used to be $3 billion, now it's only $1 billion. They achieved $2.1 billion by selling off the GM shares to add to the budget, and if they had waited actually another couple of weeks, they would have actually made another $100 million. Yeah. Now there's prudent fiscal management. Another $3.4 billion, where did they get it? They stole it from the EI fund, the Employment Insurance Fund. $3.4 billion. So we've got $3.4 billion, we've got $2.1 billion, and we've got another $2 billion shaved from the contingency fund. And that's where they come up with a phony balanced budget. Are we really talking about prudent fiscal management, or are we talking about a shell game that's designed to confuse people and let people believe that they somehow or other have magically balanced the budget through prudent fiscal management? What we really have had, Mr. Speaker, is that they've taken away important sources of income from the government, like the corporate taxes that are necessary to pay for the services that Canadians need and deserve. And they've done that in a way that was basically a corporate gift. We are now very likely the lowest corporate tax rate in the whole OECD. The wealthiest nations in the world, they have a corporate tax rate that is, all of them have a tax rate higher than ours. We would do something about that, Mr. Speaker. And if you want to call that raising taxes, yes, that would be raising taxes. You know, my colleague in the provincial government, provincial party in Newfoundland, when confronted with the notion that the NDP supposedly is a tax and spend party, he says, yes, we are a tax and spend party. We tax fairly and spend wisely. And this government is doing the exact opposite of that. It's taking away the kind of taxes that other countries routinely and all across the world make corporations pay their fair taxes, and this government is giving away revenue and then taking away the services that revenue pays for. Now, Mr. Speaker, when you look at the things that they do have in this budget that I mentioned in terms of making special arrangements for the wealthy, well, the first one that's obvious and jumps out at everybody is this income splitting proposal. $2.4 billion. Income splitting for families with children under 18. Income splitting that does zero for single-parent families, who are amongst the poorest families in the country, and families without children under 18, or parents who are in the same tax bracket, with the cost of $2.4 billion. This gives no benefit, zero benefit, to 86% of families, but actually helps the wealthiest. Now, is that wise spending of the government money? Is that good for the future of this country? Is that good for solving some of the problems that Canada has? No, Mr. Speaker. And you add on top of that the significant increase, almost doubling, of the tax-free savings account, and what do you get? You get another program that helps and is designed to help amongst the wealthiest of Canadians. Now, you know, we just heard someone opposite talk about his mother, in age 96, putting money into a tax-free savings account. That's wonderful. That's wonderful that she's able to do that. But, you know, the reality, we need a reality check with this government because they're ignoring the vast majority of Canadians. You know, 51% of employees in a survey done by the Canadian Payroll Association, this is not a left-wing think tank, Mr. Speaker, the Canadian Payroll Association last September said 51% of employees said they find it difficult to meet their financial obligations if their paycheck was delayed by 1 week. So they're living from paycheck to paycheck. They're not putting away $10,000 each or $20,000 per couple into a tax-free saving account. They are just not capable of doing that because they're doing their very best to try and meet their obligations paycheck to paycheck. And that's just people who are working, Mr. Speaker. That's not people who are unemployed or people who are looking for, have been looking for work for a long time, or who are disabled, or who are living on social assistance because of difficult circumstances that they have. These are people who are actually working. So where is the benefit to the people of Canada to have this tax-free saving account almost doubled? It's not there, Mr. Speaker. It doesn't do anything to solve the problem that Canadians have now. And what's the government's solution? What's the government's answer? The finance minister's answer when someone says this is putting an unfair burden on taxpayers to take away this source of revenue and it's going to grow over the years? He said, well, we'll let the Prime Minister's granddaughter solve that problem. That's the answer, Mr. Speaker. We'll let the Prime Minister's granddaughter solve that problem somewhere down the road. Well, Mr. Speaker, we have a plan that's going to make our children and our grandchildren better off because we want to have a program that serves their interests now. And one of the most obvious ones, we've announced it already, it's something that is gaining more and more traction as time goes on, and that's the National Child Care Plan for maximum $15 a day child care. What will that do, Mr. Speaker? Well, that will ensure that single parents have an opportunity to get to work, to finish an education, to make sure that their children are going to be looked after and have a better income for themselves. It's going to make sure that couples are able to work as well as look after their children, instead, Mr. Speaker, of having what in many cases is the next highest expense next to their mortgage, Mr. Speaker. That's what needs to be fixed in this country to make life better for our children and our grandchildren and not go the other way, which this government seems to be quite happy and content to do. So, Mr. Speaker, there are measures that we have proposed that will do positive and good things for the future of this country, help solve some of the problems of inequality, ensure that families have a better opportunity to look after their families and the future of their families, and this government ignores those needs in a crude attempt to try and buy people's votes with their own money. It's an old game, Mr. Speaker, and it's one that's not going to work because Canadians are the wiser. So we look forward, Mr. Speaker, to an election coming up later on this year because we have plans and proposals that we believe can help solve some of the problems that Canadians have. We have a vision for a more equal Canada and a greater opportunity to work together to build that country instead of tearing it down. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.